Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone is enjoying their day. Depending on where you're watching this in the world, I hope this content finds you blessed. I hope this content will continue to enlighten you with your walk with Jesus, and that if you have not started a relationship with Him, this is the time to do so. And I hope everyone's having a great weekend. Out here a little bit, just gonna do a little walk. Get out here and enjoy this. This weather is a little bit not sunny, but it's not raining. It's cloudy, and people are out and about. And I kind of want to just talk about a little bit of something today, and not going to be for you guys very long. Please go ahead and share this video if you want. As always, I'm grateful for the opportunity to. Before I say anything, please excuse the background noise. People are out and about, but I hope that this video, share it. Hit the like button if you want. I continue to try to be faithful to what the Lord's put in my heart to share with people, and I hope that something is said that can trigger something in your heart, to reflect, to take this to prayer, to apply it to your life in any way that you need to, and that it'll make your life better and make your relationships better. So one of the things I want to talk about is the capacity to hold. It seems simple, but when we think of capacity, capacity is the ability to able to your limit, right? Your breaking point. Capacity is your ability to adjust, to adapt, and to be able to shift different variations of things in your life. And when you don't have the capacity to hold, and I'm talking specifically in relationships more so than anything else, then you have to reflect on certain things in your life and why you can't hold the things that you need to. What I mean by capacity to hold, this again can vary in any way. You can be applied to your ability to do jobs. It's your bandwidth in relationships. It's your bandwidth when it comes to God and your relationship with Him, your assignment, your purpose. It can apply to anything in your life. But when you think of when you see the culture of the world today, when you see relationships, and everyone who listens to this can attest in your relationship, your past relationships rather, to where you say, okay, I've been in this relationship with this individual, and this is one example of where I'm going to go with this. But when you start to realize that you can't handle certain things, when you're mistreating others, when you're not loyal or faithful to that person, when you're not able to communicate well, when you're not be able to empathize and sympathize, you're not able to sit back and have a good conversation and be a good conflict resolution type of person, and you're not able to listen to the other person and be able to understand what they're going through, or be able to have that, again, capacity, then you have to sit back and think, A, do you want a relationship with that person? B, do you want a relationship at all? Or C, is it something that I need to sit back and look at in my life and see if I need to reflect on what is the issue? And this can apply to God, because a lot of times when you're limited to God and your relationship with Him, that is also a capacity issue. And you have to sit back and go to God and say, okay, where I'm having a shortcoming, what I need to work on. And when you think about your relationship with God, it should be first and foremost. Anyway, you should always be moving in the direction where your relationship with God is continuing to grow, because that's going to help you with your relationships with people. If a lot of times your relationships with people are bad, it's a lot of times your relationship with God is not the best either. So the first thing is always to look into, how can I fix my relationship with God? Communication, intimacy, prayer, obedience, connection, right? And with God, and He would develop your relationships, or He would put people in your life that will benefit, that would show Himself great in them, and you'll have the most fruitful relationships, because that's the goal at the end of the day. The goal at the end of the day is to have fruitful, wholesome relationships. At least the goal that I'm trying to push. And not just be in any type of relationship where I'm just with this person or I'm friends with this person and it's not fruitful. It's traumatic. It's toxic. It doesn't benefit. It doesn't make you grow or become a better person or maintain the standard of, what a relationship should be. So again, we have to sit back and say, my capacity. One of the things that I see a lot, and I personally experienced, is people not having the mental capacity to hold the person. Friendships, for example, if it's gossip, right? If someone says something to you that is important to them, or says something to you to where I need you to keep this to myself. And I can't do that, and I have this ability to go and tell others. And one thing I learned, from personal experience, is when you participate in gossip, right? You participate in talking about others, and you don't have that capacity to hold. Most times out of 10, you'll go and tell someone else, and that person may not like that other person, or they just don't like anything about that person. And that a lot of times when we reveal secrets, Proverbs 16:28 talks about that. You reveal secrets and it causes slander. And that slander, right? That person that doesn't have the best intent. So when you release that information to a person and they don't have the best intent, or they don't care for that person, or they don't like that person, what happens? That person speaks ill out their mouth towards that person behind their back. And then that curse has been spoken against them, because you was given the secret or given the word from them, and instead of you holding it, locking it up, you go and tell someone else. So gossip is very bad in that, because it promotes destruction of that person that you're trying to hold. So you can't hold it, then you may not need to be the one to tell. So when it comes to an example of friendship, that can destroy friendships. Even when it comes to young kids, what you're taught as a child, the basic traits of social dynamics in a relationship, it starts early too, because a lot of times when younger kids, they're not taught correctly, they engage in this type of behavior where they're going and telling secrets of things that they didn't want to be told. It destroys relationships, and that's taught early. And friendships are developed that way. And as the child gets older and gets more engaged with other people, that mindset moves to it as an adult. So it's critical, even as a younger child, your parents are teaching the kids not to engage in gossip or slander, and also learn good social etiquette when it comes to building relationships in reference to what to hold and what not to hold. Another thing with mental capacity is that if you're dealing with your own mental issues, you're dealing with your own trauma, you're dealing with your own mess ups or your insecurities, 9 times out of 10, not always, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to have the capacity to hold. You're not going to be able to deal with another person's other issues, because you're not dealing with yours. So in preference of dating relationships, the beginning foundation of that, I see it all the time. And when I deal with traumatic experiences from other people, I deal with a lot of stuff when it comes to real trauma. And a lot of times when people get in relationships, they particularly don't have the capacity to hold that person. So when a person is addressing a concern and they're speaking about an issue that hurt them, that person can't. They're so engulfed in their trauma and engulfed in their own issues that they have a hard time of saying, "Let me sit back and think about what you're saying." They can't do it, or it's very hard for them to do it. They're always they're defensive, they're insensitive, and they are not empathetic to the person, and it causes trauma to the other person. Their capacity is low because they haven't had the time to deal with their own stuff. So this is something that, again, if you notice that, you should sit back, one, express that and be open to the change and be open to the healing, or don't put yourself in a position where your capacity is low. Because a lot of times, especially in dating relationships, if not brought to the forefront, 9 times out of 10, it'll if that person stays with together, they stay in that partnership, or even progresses to marriage, then that concept is moved on to the next level, and then you're married to this person, and then it continues from there. It has to be the capacity. Another aspect to this too is when a person is going through something, and they're the type of personality to where I really don't care. It's a small thing to me. If for example, it can be as low or as extreme to where something bothers that person. It can be something as someone said something to me at work I didn't like. I'm upset about it, or this happened or that happened. And that other person's like, well, this is nothing, right? The empathy or the sympathy of that issue is overlooked or downplayed, or it's not given the attention that it needs. It's small to that person. And what that means, you don't have the grace for that person. If that person has a certain issue, and you don't have the grace for that person, you don't have the grace to sit and sit down and listen to what they got to say, you don't have the grace to help them work through it, then that also means lack of capacity. Not to be too sensitive, but there was an encounter that I had at work where individual, she was sexually assaulted, and no, I'm very sensitive to that. I'm very sensitive to that. So those who listening, please don't get offended. I'm going somewhere with this, but it's not. I'm not exploiting this person. But one of the things that was interesting about it was, for me, this is my experience. I never experienced this before. When I was going through the process with this person, I was, working through the case and stuff like that with them, right? One of the things and this person was married. One of the things that, came out was that the woman was going through so much trauma. And of course it's a traumatic event that happened. It's a traumatic event that taken place in her life, and everyone in her life was affected by it because of what happened to her. So with that, the husband of the wife, he had to adjust to those changes. She had to adjust to the lifestyle change, because she's now going through healing process, going through different responses and triggers, and her life is totally different now. So now that he's still married to this woman, you see a beginning when she wasn't before it happened, the event happened, and then you see a woman after. And now when you're dealing with these traumatic experiences, he has to have the grace and the capacity to adjust with her, to help her, to understand, to put his needs on hold, and the things that a husband requires on hold, so he can help her be better and recover from this traumatic event. So that's extreme example, but if you don't have the capacity to adapt and to be faithful and loyal and loving despite the outbursts, despite the anger, panic attacks, despite the snappiness, and despite those emotions that came with what happened to her, and the other, the mom and other family members that's involved with her in regards to helping her heal, and she's having closed off moments, and she doesn't want to be bothered, and all these different emotions. He has to be able to adapt and help her through this challenging time. So capacity is like an energy. It's hard to explain, but it's like you got a meter, and your meter depletes over time due to whatever happens in your life. And sometimes we can expose ourselves to unnecessary aspects to limiting our capacity. Or if we may think we have the capacity, and something's not getting fulfilled, or something's not getting replenished, and then our capacity drops drastically, and then we have no capacity. And then what happens after that, it turns into, I don't care about having capacity. I don't care about being there for someone else. I'm all about me. I'm all about what I want. So these things are very, we have to sit back and think about these things. We have to sit back as people and take time to understand our capacity, because, especially in relationships, because you see a lot of trauma and hurt and pain being passed on to and from relationship after relationship. When we're moving to person, we're not healing, we're not sitting back and ask these questions. And then we end up in relationships where a person may have a genuine concern, or they may want to really be in a relationship, and they're being a fruitful one, and the person that hasn't taken the time to understand their capacity level. One of the things we can do as people to replenish capacity is to, one, first of all, know where we're at. And two, allow God to continue to replenish. Another point to that is having people pour into you. That's going to be an uplift. You have a support system. You have a church. You have a friend. You have someone that prays for you, that walks with you during this time. You have to have someone to replenish. If you're in a marriage or relationship, that person should be helping you replenish what you have lost. If you're always giving and always pouring into a person, and they're not reciprocating it back, it's going to cause your capacity to diminish. Okay, and also knowing your limits and having your conversations and your hard conversations, and knowing what their limits are, and understanding if you get into a relationship with a person, and you start talking to them and you start dealing with them, and there's certain things that you feel like you can't have the capacity to deal with, then you might need to have that conversation with that person and limit and say, look, this isn't for me. And I know for me, like, sometimes it can be very blow to the ego, blow to the pride. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was in my college days, right? It was a woman, I never forget what she said, but it was a woman that, in college, it's very open, right? Everybody kind of do what they want to do. But in college, I'll never forget what a girl told me one time. She said, I don't date men with kids, even if it's one child. And I kind of got upset about it. And I said, well, so I'm penalized because I have a child. I had a child, my first daughter early on in college. And I was, you penalizing me, for something. And she said, I have a path, I have a purpose, I have a certain thing that I want to do in my life. And I don't want somebody, it'll be a hindrance to her. Right. That, and looking back on it, as I was coming up with this idea for this video, one of the things that I, years later, this has been years ago, like my late teens, 18, 19 years old. One of the things she was really saying was that she doesn't have the capacity to hold. She don't have that capacity. That is a limit for her. And she was just being upfront and honest from the beginning. Now, she could have been truthful, or she could have been just saying that just to get out of the conversation. But either way, that was her reasoning on why she didn't want to pursue, a full-blown relationship. And that's I guess that's her truth. So with that, being honest and saying, look, this isn't for me. I don't have the grace for this type of thing, right? And that's when, and it can be hurtful. You can feel rejection. You can get in these types of things. And that's why we have to go back to what I said before about relationship with God. Because relationship with God, you will be in positions. I truly believe you'll be in positions to where God will put you with a person. If you desire marriage, of course, you desire a relationship, He will put you with people and put you in a position where you're a man or a woman, that God will give that person the grace for you, despite of whatever you have, your mistakes you've made, despite of any changes you've been, or whatever the case may be. God will give you the person to have the grace. But when you're trying to do it the world's way, and you're getting into relationships, and you're trying to find you have a certain preference or a certain standard, and you want a certain type of man or a certain type of woman, and you're not allowing God to make those decisions in regards to leading you to the kingdom husband or wife, and this is just marriage, you're going to keep going to people that don't have the grace. And although they may say at the beginning, they may say, hey, I have the capacity for you. And what they're saying is that they have the temporal capacity. And that capacity could be, you know, saying for other reasons, like, you know, if I'm a man and I see a woman and she has whatever going on with her, right? Or vice versa, a woman meets a man that whatever going on with him. Again, excuse for the background noise. And they see something they can gain, or they may see a benefit, or they may just be infatuated, or they may just be in their flesh. Then they're gonna have a temporal capacity. Their capacity may be at a certain point, but then once it's said and done, or if it's something that goes wrong, then they done. They done. They can't handle it no more. So all these things are factors. You know, if you don't have the grace for this situation, or if you don't have the grace for this person, or you don't have the capacity, then that should be spoken up front. A lot of people get in relationships where they go after their carnality or their flesh, and they don't look into the things of God. They don't, and everything when it comes to kingdom marriage, and again, just speaking specifically that, you have to have a purpose. God has established it. You have to be whole. You have to be healed. You have to see things beyond the physical and the tangible in order to move beyond and get to that place where there is grace and there is things that God can bring and produce fruit and wholeness out of that relationship. Because that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal for God, at least, is to have wholesome, fruitful relations, just like it were at the very beginning. Before, the goal of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis, the very goal that God wanted for his creation, for man and woman, when he brought his suitable helper, to him, one of the things that he wanted to do was establish that mindset of whole relationships. That's what he wanted. You know, he didn't want this corruption of sin and evil and broken homes and all types of broken relationships. He wanted a partnership that was, it represented and emulated his relationship with God, with us. When Jesus spoke of the husband and we're the bridegroom and he's the bride, that's a marriage covenant made between man and him. That was the whole original plan, was to create a fellowship, a friendship, a love, a walking day to day with God every day, right? That was the original intent. But when sin came into the picture, that it was no longer that, it was separation. So the enemy took these things and said, okay, I'm gonna create my own version of what relationships should be. And I'm gonna mix people together, and I'm gonna do all these different things and create all this chaos within homes and within marriages and within relationships. You know, put people together that shouldn't be together. Put people with friendships. Let people seek out friends for other reasons besides just truly being intentful and friends. People want to be friends because they're hurt or they want somebody to lean on. People rebound and go from relationship to relationship because they just want somebody next to them. They're not seeking relationships for wholeness and purpose. So these things are important. You know, these things are very important in development, and it will save a lot of issues within business partnerships, ministers, pastoral relationships, even parental and family relationships. And when there's family members are not doing these same things, you having relatives out of line, when you having people that's not talking because of broken relationships, and of course marriages and dating relationships. These are crucial to understand capacity to hold. You have to be whole to be able to hold. It was somebody who used to say that a lot. You have to be whole, WHOLE, to hold, HOLD. If you're not doing these things, then you're not going to have good relationships. That's in any capacity. That's in any type of relationship. So I just want to get on here and say that. I hope this helps somebody. I hope this helps you sit down and think about your capacity. I don't think it's the issue that your capacity is low, because it happens. Even in most godly relationships, people, their capacity will decrease. You know, only one should be consistent is God's, and you and God's relationship, y'all relationship. Everyone's relationship with God should be consistent. But when your capacity drops, that's when you get with God and you get with and have him restore your capacity. In your scriptures, using faith as a tool to continue to keep hope. You can't please God without faith. Faith is not just a belief. It's an action. It's something that you do. It's something that you walk in. You know, faith is something that is a consistent journey, day to day, right? God gives us the seeds. There's a pastor that I'm listening to currently about, he did his Touch Point Tuesdays, if people know what I'm talking about. He says God gives us things as a seed. He doesn't give us the full thing. He doesn't give us the full whole vision carried out. He gives us a seed, and we have to take that seed and we have to allow it to be planted and nourished, and then it grows. And we are seeing to it where the what's the word I'm looking for? We're the ones stewarding the seed, and then let it grow into a fruit, grow into a tree which bears fruit. And that's in anything that we do, but more so when it comes to dealing with relationships in general, we have to be able to allow the fruit to bear. So when capacity is low, that's when you have to notice it. A lot of people don't notice it, and they continue to go on about their lives, and they move from weave through different relationships, and then you wonder why things don't work. I see people go 2 or 3 different people, and they get into these small time relationships, and they don't last. And I'm not trying to bash, and this is men and women. You get with a woman, you have a kid with her, and then you're gone. And then you go to the next one, you do the same thing. And the next one, you do the same thing. The woman, you go to a man, you have a kid with him, y'all break up. Then you move on to the next one, you do the same thing. You have another kid, and then you have another kid, right? And it's no judgment, because we all done it. But I feel like that a lot of that could be prevented if you knew your capacity. If you just sat down and said, okay, what is going on? What is this in my life that I need to look into? Do I just want somebody there? Do I just want to do what I want to do? Or do I want to take time and really heal and say, okay, I need to, if I want a marriage or a relationship, if I want to have a significant other in my life, preferable marriage, godly marriage. But if you want a relationship, do I want a fruitful one? Or do I just want any other type of relationship? I just want somebody there. I just want somebody around. I want a man. I just want somebody to lay it with. Or do I want a fruitful, wholesome relationship that's going to last? That's going to be fruitful. That's going to carry throughout time. That's going to be a witness to others. Marriage is a witness to others. Everybody, they want the relationships where some do, where they wonder how people make it 40, 50 years in marriage. They want to know what's the secret. What's the secret of the husband and wife living together and being together for 40 plus years? The secret is that they have a desire to have a wholesome marriage, a fruitful, wholesome marriage. And they were willing to be faithful and loyal and work through it, right? And to be willing to, first of all, be whole themselves. You have to want to be whole. You have to want to be able to have those bearing fruit marriages. And people will see it and they'll marvel. They'll wonder, in this day's society, how come that you can last for 40 years? It's getting less and less. People's limits are decreasing every day for marriage, because everybody's breaking up. People are leaving. People are divorcing. People are not even marrying at all. They get in relationships and they do their thing and they leave. And that's just how the culture is moving. So, again, not gonna be on here long, but I do want to just talk about that. Take time to pray and think about your relationship. Take time to think about what you want to do in life in regards to that. Ask yourself about the capacity and allow God to heal you in that area. So that's all I got. I'm not going to be here before you guys hitting 30 minutes, but I really wanted to get that out and share that. So please share, subscribe. Freedom Fighters, Rebuilding Community Trust. Doing the Facebook Encourage page for those who like to be encouraged. I know my wife's doing that. And we're doing some other stuff coming up soon. And just thank you for your time. All right. Y'all be blessed and love you guys.